Sadly, I finished this speech about 10 minutes ago, so I'm going to have to have my notes ahead of me, which means that I'm running out of hands a little bit. Welcome to Bitcoin Amsterdam. My name is Erik Dale. It's very nice to have all of you here. It's very nice to have so many of our transatlantic friends coming over to Europe for a Bitcoin conference for once. I run a company called Plebcity, which is Scandinavia's biggest Bitcoin channel and community. We have a very simple goal, which is to turn the most privileged nations on earth into beacons for Bitcoin, which is a bit counterintuitive, but that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm waiting for my slides to come up. Is that going to happen on itself, or? Yeah. I'm taking a completely different angle today. So at first, I was given a title by Bitcoin Magazine called Growing the Bitcoin Army, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it because Bitcoiners are arguably some of the most peaceful people on earth. Violence is antithetical to Bitcoin as a store of value and as a store of values. And the network is perfectly capable of defending itself, no army needed. And I certainly don't want to have any association with the XRP army or the likes. But at the same time, with fiat nukes once again directed at London, Moscow, and Berlin, with our fiat overlords enriching themselves faster than late medieval popes, and with our fiat future promising us a level of surveillance and control that would make the Gestapo proud, it is perhaps fair to ask if stacking sats is our only form of resistance. So, of course, everyone knows the fastest way to build a modern army is to be invaded by Russia. But today I want to talk to you about one of the most successful examples of decentralized resistance the world has ever seen. It was a movement that was born in the wake of a disruptive communications technology that allowed information to be copied, verified, and spread at an unimaginable speed. It was an innovation that was created to overcome the corruption and the inefficiency of institutions that had outlived their usefulness. And it was an idea that survived all onslaughts, from brutal internal persecution to decades of continental war. Yeah, no, it's not Bitcoin. Today I want to talk to you about 7 lessons we can learn from late medieval Bitcoiners. How to grow a successful Reformation. The only talk of its kind you'll hear here, I'm pretty sure. The late 15th century in Europe was a weird, Matrix-like experience. Imagine being Neo walking down Amsterdam in like 1492, to make it relatable to our American friends. What do you see? It's a world where almost every aspect of life is dominated by a single set of institutions, where those institutions are involved in all major life transitions, provides all the welfare and all the education for everyone around you. They even decide what is heretical misinformation and who is qualified to access the truth. Get it? It's a situation we can all recognize ourselves in it. To most people around us, the world that we are ending with Bitcoin, the institutions that we are challenging, is the only one they have ever known. They will fight us for it. Safe to say, you can't just be Neo walking around unplugging everybody willy-nilly. The first lesson of the Reformation: talk to the people who are most likely to listen to you in the moment and least likely to hurt you in the future. Start with your family and friends. Step number 2 for a successful Reformation: copy everything. Whoops. Being a censor in 1492 must have been an extremely maddening experience, because ever since Gutenberg discovered how to connect his printer to the Wi-Fi, things got really out of hand in Europe. And by 1492, there were over 25 print shops, hipster print shops, right here in the Netherlands. Needless to say, this is an environment where it's very difficult to be a censor, and the consequence of that was not immediately apparent, much like the internet in the 90s. But it basically created a prototype of an immutable ledger. because the cost of corrupting and manipulating information went through the roof. It made it extremely difficult to control the dissemination of information. What used to be done with a letter from the Pope, from a central institution, would now require an entire inquisition and still be unsuccessful. So clearly, late medieval Bitcoiners all agree, run your own node. Copy and verify and distribute the information. And once you've done that, the greatest weakness of the powerful has always been the same thing. They have an extreme disdain and distrust in ordinary people. And that's something we can exploit. Imagine living in a world where only the officially accredited can legitimately interpret the truth. And that truth is written in a language that's incomprehensible to anyone who has not been brainwashed by the same fucking institutions. Yeah, I know, it's a huge stretch. In conditions like this, the truth becomes a crown in the gutter. When Luther translated the Bible to vernacular German, and he denied that the church was necessary to interpret the truth, he just picked it up and made it local. Trust that anyone can have a relationship with the truth. Make some memes, create a podcast, translate a book, and write an op-ed. OPSEC matters. Luther probably didn't intend to spend 300 days locked up in Wartburg Castle, but he totally doxed himself. And while the Inquisition had existed for hundreds of years before the Reformation, it didn't really become brutal or too oppressive until after the Reformation. OPSEC matters, and institutions that you trust today can easily turn on you in the future. So this lesson is pretty simple. Get your Bitcoin non-KYC, use a NIM when you can, and take steps to never tell anyone what you own, where you own, or which tools you use. Protect your privacy and your security. And of course, free Ross Ulbricht. Okay, let's have a show of hands. I know you've done this before, but everyone who's used Bitcoin before, give me your hand. Now, if you've used, hold your hands up. If you've never used Lightning, take your hand down. If you don't run your own node, take your hand down. And if you've never been to El Salvador, take your hand down. The first princes to stand up to the church were devout Catholics. They had their own selfish reasons to break with the church. But by inviting in an idea whose time had come, they fundamentally transformed their own realms in ways that we still feel everywhere around us today. It is no coincidence that the most successful and wealthiest nations on earth are in Northern Europe, to this day. So if you believe, as I do, that Bitcoin is a fork in the road for prosperity and freedom, it is arguably as morally incumbent on us to spread local adoption and knowledge about Bitcoin as it would be for a devout Christian to save your soul. So organize and attend meetups. Teach your hairdresser how to get paid over Lightning, and offer to pay the people you borrowed a beer from back in Lightning. It's morally incumbent upon you. And if that doesn't work, if no one listens, then run somewhere they do. Move to El Salvador. Translating and distributing, oops, am I going too far? Yeah, that was the last one. Move somewhere they do. Translating and distributing the Bible and rejecting that the church was necessary to interpret it basically made the Reformation an open source project. And while some people ran with it and became, supreme head of the Church of England and the like, fundamentally there are as many forks of the Reformation as there are congregations. And this means that there never was and never is a single point of failure. The very large variety in faith and action within a single faith structure, worldview, made it far more anti-fragile than the monolithic superstructures that the Reformation sought to challenge. Crushing it became an impossible game of whack-a-mole. So create communities with Bitcoiners who think like you. Build the citadel that you have always been dreaming about, and bring your knowledge and your perspective, even if it's something weird like taking Protestantism as an angle to Bitcoin. Bring it to the table and make it a game of whack-a-mole for our fiat overlords. All right, final lesson. Die on this hill. And this is, I don't know if this is straight up Reformation, but the curious thing about Jesus has always been, and I am not a believer, by the way, I just find this fascinating. He could have stopped the whole thing at any time. He had the power to, right? But yet he went to a gruesome end, not knowing if his sacrifice would be worth it. He didn't blame the government or the other people or his family or his school or HDHD or anything like that. He carried his own suffering and his own cross and went to the end of his own destiny. And he did that because of something that we now know to be mathematically true. That the more people carry the sins of others, the less sin there is for everyone to carry. This is a simple mathematical principle we call the Peter principle, and it's important in economics. But it's simply that. Take on the sins of others to reduce the suffering of everyone. And that basically means that Jesus literally invented the meme, I will die on this hill. All right. During this conference, you're going to be introduced to a bunch of communities, tools, projects, and people who all make up the intellectual and social arsenal of Bitcoin in what I would consider to be a form of hybrid war we're moving into. I hope that this talk and many of the others here will inspire you to zoom out and see the many perspectives on this very historic moment that is coming, teach you how to arm yourself, and inspire you to take action when you leave this conference as well. If you want to reach out to me, my name is Erik Dale on Twitter and everywhere else, at Eurodale, like the currency, and Chippendale. And yeah, I wish you guys all a great conference and happy Reformation, I suppose.